All right, well, if you would take your Bibles and turn to Luke chapter 19, we are continuing on through parables, and this is the individual practical application. So, my hope that throughout the week, your foremost thought has been, what does Luke 19 have to say to me? And you have been poring over it, and you are equipped, bless you, and ready to discuss. But if not, we'll continue to plow ahead. Okay, so let's start with reading the passage, and then we'll start working through it and start thinking some implications, how we would apply it. So Luke 19, starting with verse 11. While they were listening to these things, Jesus went on to tell a parable, because he was near Jerusalem, and they supposed that the kingdom of God was going to appear immediately. So he said, a nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself and then return. And he called 10 of his slaves, and he gave them 10 minas and said to them, do business with this until I come back. But his citizens hated him and sent a delegation after him, saying, we do not want this man to reign over us. When he returned after receiving the kingdom, he ordered that these slaves to whom he had given the money be called to him, so that he might know what business they had done. The first appeared, saying, Master, your mina has made 10 minas more. And he said to him, well done, good slave, because you have been faithful in a very little thing, you are to be in authority over 10 cities. The second came, saying, your mina, master, has made 5 minas. And he said to him also, and you are to be over 5 cities. Another came, saying, Master, here's your mina, which I kept put away in a handkerchief, for I was afraid of you, because you are an exacting man. You take up what you did not lay down, and you reap what you did not sow. He said to him, by your own words I will judge you, you worthless slave. Did you know that I am an exacting man, taking up what I did not lay down, and reaping what I did not sow? Then why did you not put my money in the bank? And having come, I would have collected it with interest. Then he said to the bystanders, take the mina away from him and give it to the one who has the 10 minas. And they said to him, Master, he has 10 minas already. I tell you that to everyone who has, more shall be given, but from the one who does not have, even what he does have will be taken away from him. But these enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them in my presence. All right, so that's the parable we're going to be working with this morning. And if you have the note sheet, you have, again, the questions that we're going to be working through on this. We, of course, initially start with what is the provenance of the parable, which we have looked at Luke before. So we have Luke, who's writing this probably late 60s, writing to Theophilus, explaining the ministry of Jesus. We know, again, there's these Lucan emphases that he gives on the temple, the Holy Spirit, prayer, and relevant to what we're looking at here, possessions. Okay, so that's the surrounding context of the book. So let's move on to the next question. So then, as we come to this, what is the scope and the context of the literary unit that involves this parable? So where does this start? And again, there's potentially a couple different answers you could give. So you look at it and say, well, it kind of looks like it starts here, and someone else says something different. That doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong, especially with Luke, because he does something here.
Geographically where it starts.
Where does it start in the text? Where does this whole section start? Because we can look at it and we can say, verse 11, while they were listening to these things, okay, well, so that seems to link to the previous account. Julie, I think you said, okay. So we have Zacchaeus and his possessions. So good. As far as immediate context, we have that. Now, Luke is kind of interesting. I'll just give you at least part of the answer up front. In that the first about 9 chapters, you have the ministry of Jesus. And then when you get to chapter 9, verse 51, extending through chapter 19, verse 27, you have a distinct shift within Luke. And from then on, in chapter 9, verse 51, we have this statement. When the days were approaching for his ascension, he was determined to go to Jerusalem. In verse 53, they did not receive him because he was traveling toward Jerusalem. And if we kept flipping through the chapters, we would see over and over and over again, Jesus is going to Jerusalem. So Luke very specifically structures this section, chapter 9, verse 51 through chapter 19, verse 27, as Jesus is going to Jerusalem. Even when sometimes Luke arranges things non-chronologically, he still does it with Jesus is going to Jerusalem. His face is set towards Jerusalem as he was going on to Jerusalem. So that starts with chapter 9, verse 51. It ends with chapter 19, verse 27. So the section we read is the very last section of this larger section of Jesus going to Jerusalem. And then the very next verse, he is going on ahead, going up to Jerusalem, and then the very next section is him actually entering into Jerusalem. So the section we read is the capstone of Jesus going to Jerusalem. So there's significance there. This isn't just a story that's thrown in just because Luke didn't have anything else to give.
Also, isn't he he's giving a lot of parables. He gives parables that other books don't give.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it seems like they're all in this section.
Mm-hmm.
So the prodigal son, the persistent widow, to me, it seems like he puts a value on the stories that Jesus is giving, and maybe they're not in order, but they're important to be viewed as what they are.
Yeah. So significant teaching during this section that is all in conjunction with, as he's going to Jerusalem for his crucifixion. We come to this section, which, again, we'll dig into the parable, but just suffice it to say for right now, he takes this parable, and at the very end of this section, Luke says, and let's close this chapter of Jesus' life with this particular parable about the nobleman and the talents. The major translational differences at any point in the parable, not anything drastic here. Key terms required to understand the parable. Okay. So for here, what terms do we need to understand if we're going to understand this parable correctly?
Servants.
Okay. Servants, slaves, doulos, the idea of individuals who are under the master. These are clearly entrusted with responsibility.
Mina.
Okay. What is a mina?
Below age 12.
Very good. They are not allowed to vote. No. Okay, so mina. Some translations will have it talent, but this is not the talent like we have in Matthew 18, where you have this servant who owes 10,000 talents. That would be about 20 years worth of work. This is a little bit smaller. This is about 100 days worth of work. So we're talking about 3 to 4 months worth of the common laborer's pay. that he gives to his 10 servants here. Okay, so 3 to 4 months worth of labor. What precipitates the parable? Why does Jesus give this parable?
Well, teaching his disciples,
Uh-huh. Why?
they are ignorant, they need
Okay,
information.
so they need clear teaching.
Big crowd here, 12 disciples.
Okay,
It
good.
says because they supposed that the kingdom of God was to appear immediately.
Okay, good. John? Okay. So they supposed that the kingdom of God was going to appear immediately. So that's interesting that then fires off this parable. Here's the disciples thinking, we're going to Jerusalem. We have been working our way to Jerusalem. We're going to walk into Jerusalem. And at this point, Jesus is going to establish himself as king. And he is going to reign over Israel. He's going to bring in the Messianic kingdom, and we are going to reign with him forever. And so, because they are thinking this, Jesus gives them this parable. Just going to be helpful as we dig into the details here. So he's thinking he's going to usher in the kingdom of God, or the disciples are thinking this, when in reality, he's actually going to be leaving them for a significant period of time. They don't quite understand this. We move down to the key characters in this parable, and this is where it starts getting particularly interesting. Who do we have here?
The nobleman and the 3 slaves.
Okay, nobleman and the 3 slaves.
Also his citizens, what does that mean? Is he referring to just the 3 slaves, or is he referring to the whole village?
Okay, so we have the nobleman, 3 slaves, and then more broadly, the citizens. Now, what this indicates is this could be talking about the other 7 slaves who are not addressed in this parable, because he calls 10 of his slaves, gives them each a mina, and then we only address 3 of them. And then in context, he's talking about his citizens hating him, and then he judges them when he gets back. So that could very well be referring to the other 7, which then begs the question, who do these characters represent?
With the occupants of the kingdom that he established.
Okay, so let's start with the nobleman. Who's the nobleman?
Jesus.
Okay. Then we have these citizens who are occupying until the nobleman, Jesus, returns, and then they are allocated their rewards. So we have the citizens who hate the nobleman, those who are openly hostile, we could say openly hostile to Jesus. And then we have these 3 slaves, and we can break them down by category. So we have the first slave who is very faithful. We have the second slave who is somewhat faithful, but we have indications here that he was not as faithful as the first slave. And then we have the 3rd slave, and how could we best describe guy number 3? Okay, unbeliever. What kind of unbeliever? Open, flagrant unbeliever, or lukewarm?
Apathetic.
Apathetic. Maybe pretender.
Yeah.
One who is pretending to be a loyal, faithful servant, but in reality is not.
But not really a very good pretender, because when asked, he put it right out there and said, I know you to be a harsh man. It takes what you didn't, sow what you, or reap what you didn't sow.
Okay, so he's making a whole bunch of excuses here. Linda?
He may be just a believer who sits in a pew.
Okay.
Who doesn't actually do anything with what he's given, or
Okay.
doesn't really do anything to forward God's kingdom.
Yeah, I'm going to take what you're saying and just make one minor change. Someone who sits in the pew, receives, doesn't give back, pretends to be a Christian. but his actions demonstrate, and we're going to see this as we go along, several indicators, both here and in semi-parallel passage in Matthew 25, that he is not actually a believer. Judy?
Well, I was just gonna say, a hypocrite.
Okay, yeah. A hypocrite, and we'll see that in his interaction with the master. The excuse that he gives, why does he give the particular excuse that he does? We'll dig into that.
Yeah, all of that is an assumption. Can we say then that this is not about investment strategy?
I mean, if you're getting 1,000% return for your investment strategy, that's a good one. But I'm going to say no and yes. Is this an investment strategy for life in general? Certainly not. And yet, is this an investment strategy that we should take very, very, very seriously? Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's one of the reasons why Jesus is giving it.
Where you get out.
Mhm.
That's the overall feature that he's trying to put out there for them.
Okay. Judy?
But the fact that he said you're a harsh master, he has the wrong view of God.
Okay. So hold that thought and let's dive into the next section, which you guys are already starting to dig into. What does the text, and particularly the discourse as we go through this, what does this communicate? So just start looking, just start making observations about the passage. What does this?
It communicates that the nobleman, it was going away for a while and then to return.
Okay.
So maybe he was trying to tell his disciples that he's not staying. He's gonna go away for a while and then come back.
Especially interesting when you know that his disciples believed he would ascend to the throne and start reigning immediately.
Yeah.
And then he says, in response to that, let me tell you about a nobleman who went away for a long time and then came back. Janine.
Sorry, it's just really reminds me of like instructions to like small people. I'm like, all right, now you don't touch her. Just stop. Just sit here. Do this. I'm gonna be right back. I leave the room. As soon as I'm gone, like my eyes are off. It's like exact thing I told you not to do, you're doing.
Surely we have advanced beyond that in adulthood,
Yeah.
paying taxes and jobs. Uh-huh.
It just like
Gave it away.
Not being watched.
Okay.
You're talking about John.
She did say he, right?
Moving right along. Okay. Yes, sir.
Talking to them about, this is what we're going, this is supposed to happen until I get back. And, he's not explaining to them that your perception of me coming into Jerusalem and being crowned and all that is inaccurate. Here's what we gotta do here. You've got to invest from that time next until I return. I mean, he's not saying that directly.
But he
Correct.
already said it before and they didn't get it.
Uh-huh.
He said clearly that he had to die.
Yeah.
They
So
didn't
it's
get
just time for some remedial teaching.
Yeah, some remedial instruction. Sometimes if somebody doesn't get it bluntly, you give them the Jolly Rancher and tell them, here, you suck on this for a while and eventually it's going to come to you. So as Jesus gives this parable, he not only tells them in so many words, I am going to be leaving, I will be back, but he tells them in parabolic format, and this is what you need to be thinking as I'm gone. And drives the story home in that way a lot more poignantly than if he just said, guys, you need to be diligent for the kingdom because I'm going to come back and reward you. I mean, he does say that.
It's more memorable and sticks in your mind.
Mhm.
So later on, they probably remembered, oh, that was what the story was about.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true for you guys, but I know for me, I don't know how many hours of instruction I have received in the course of my life, but what sticks is the creative story that somehow ties in with, and I mean, this is true for a variety of ways. How do you teach children? A lot of times it's through stories. You tell them stories that captivate their imagination and that they wrestle with. Whereas you give them instruction, it's like,
Yeah. That's.
What'd you say?
But Jesus also said he taught in parables so that some would get it and some wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. So,
So here we know we got the 12 disciples. They're the ones who're supposed to get it.
mhm.
Like a big crowd,
Yeah. So here we have the disciples who are supposed to get it.
Yeah.
And they do eventually get it. And then we have the other people who hear, and all they hear is the story, but they're not able to connect it to the eternal kingdom reality.
Well, who else heard the story then, besides the disciples?
In verse 31 and 18 says, he took the 12 aside. And he assumed that, and going to Jerusalem. So that's why you would assume that, almost not assumption, that that's who he's talking to.
Yeah, but the story is then spoken of by them to all of
Mhm.
us. It's in.
Yeah, I
Which-
realize that.
So there's an emphasis here on those who are at least professing disciples of Jesus. And we see why when he makes his point. But let's continue with making observations here. So, believing that Jesus is going to become king immediately, we see the observation that the nobleman's going to have to leave his citizens. He's going to receive his kingdom, and he's going to return.
We can observe that some people hate him.
Okay, several people, it seems, very much hate him.
They didn't want him to rule over them.
Okay, we see some parallels, even just without making clear connections. We see parallels between this and Jesus and the nation of Israel as a whole.
We can also observe that he trusted some of his servants and not to give them money.
Okay, so he gives his citizens a responsibility, gives his servants a responsibility that they are entrusted to do business with. The idea that he says, do business with this until I come back. You're supposed to invest this, work in this, work with this, seek to make a return.
So Tim, you just equated citizens and slaves there. Is that intentional, or it seems that those are distinct categories?
Yeah, when it talks about his citizens hating him, the question is what citizens is this talking about? Is this separate from the slaves? Because you have 10 slaves that he specifically calls out, and then he only answers and addresses 3 of them, and leaving the other 7 unaddressed. So the question then would be: so those other 7, are they these citizens that hate him?
So a kingdom of 10.
In essence, noblemen for the purposes of this parable.
So
We know this parallels, and this is getting ahead to the historical, but when Herod the Great died, there's a very similar story that unfolded with Archelaus, who took over afterwards. The people hated him, and when he went to Rome, they sent a delegation after him to say, we hate this man and we don't want him to rule over. Now, were they Archelaus's citizens or were they his slaves? And you can make the argument that they were both, in a sense, because he
that's
is
what I was just gonna say. Are we not citizens of heaven, yet slaves to righteousness?
correct. And so that's where, look at it, and there may be some people who differentiate it differently. But I think there's at least an argument to be made that he's talking about the other slaves who are completely unfaithful, who are openly hostile, and yet they are still entrusted with a certain amount of responsibility, because that parallels Israel, that parallels us today. So they're entrusted with a responsibility. And what else? Janine.
Like, so I'm envisioning this delegation walking after him, protesting the signs and everything, like following him.
Uh-huh.
Is the guy that did a bad job investing, do you think potentially influenced by this public, dissatisfaction with him? Like, is that a factor, like he's afraid of them, or like he's influenced by their dislike of the master?
Maybe. Maybe not. It could be public. It could be private. He's just lazy. You know. I don't know. There could be a number of factors going on in this guy's psyche. We'll see. Julie.
Consequences here, they're like, there's not a second chance with the master.
Okay. So there's an accounting with significant repercussions. Good. Teresa.
We also have a picture of the number of faithful. You start off with 10.
Okay.
And only 2 are deemed faithful, very much a minority.
Uh-huh. And of those 2, only 1 is actually really faithful. Take a look. How many are told, well done, good slave?
1.
Yeah. Only 1. You have 2 who brought in a return. Only 1 gets told, well done, good slave. Interesting.
And then here at the end, he says something that was kind of confusing to me.
Uh-huh.
He says, everyone who has, more will be given, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away.
Okay.
And that sentence has always been sort of an enigma to me.
So let's take that and just highlight that statement as its own individual observation. Okay. So we have this statement from Jesus about the one who was unfaithful and what is then given. And who is it given to? It's not split 50-50 between the 10 talents and the 5 talents.
No, it's given to the most productive.
Yeah. So that's going to help us as we understand.
It always seemed very undemocratic.
Yeah, kind of.
It's a monarchy, I know.
Yes, in many ways, it is a dictatorship, yet by a benign, loving dictator, as the line from Chariots of Fire goes.
And then we can also observe that at the end, he slaughters everybody who
Okay.
didn't want him to be their king or their
Yeah.
ruler.
Sound familiar?
Yes.
People
And
going to hell.
yes. So a couple other observations. The reward compared to their return, is it kind of approximate? Is it pretty direct, or is it wildly disproportionate?
It's disproportionate.
Yeah. So, hey, master, I had 1 talent, which was about 100 days worth of work. And with that, I got 10 talents. So about 1,000 days worth of work. So I got about 3 years worth of income. Okay, put that into today's terms. What are we talking? You know, maybe a couple $100,000, maybe $300,000 if you got a good paying job.
It's like you bought Intel before anybody knew.
And then what does the master say? Okay, because you brought back basically 3 years worth of income, I'm going to put you in full authority over 10 cities. And by the way, what are these 10 cities?
Yeah.
And then the 5 cities, where did those come from?
His inheritance that he went to go collect.
Yes, the kingdom that he went to receive. So he goes, put these pieces together. The nobleman goes out and he receives a kingdom. Could this parallel the new heavens and the new earth? He comes back, and based on their faithfulness, he says, I'm going to give you a wildly disproportionate section of this kingdom to reign on my behalf.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
in the parallel passage in Matthew, both the first and second slave hear well done.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons I put this on as a comparison passage, because there we have something else happening. And we have 2 parables that are similar. They are parallel at points, some of it quite parallel, and yet there's some significant differences. There we have 2 individuals who give 100% return, and they're both told, well done, good and faithful servant. They're not told that they're going to get cities per se, but they're told they are going to be rewarded greatly. So there's something else that is going on here. So hold on to that thought, because that's really significant. and helpful as we're fleshing this out. And then we talked about the reward involves authority to be exercised on behalf of the nobleman, his kingdom that he has received. Let's spend a second looking at the unfaithful servant. What was the excuse that he gave, and what does he mean? I thought you were a hard man. You pick up where you didn't sow. You take up what you didn't lay down.
He's not taking responsibility for his inaction, but he's blaming the master.
Did he love the master?
No.
No.
It also doesn't make sense, because like, if he knew that the master would get things from an investment,
Mm-hmm.
he would do what he was supposed to do, he didn't do it.
Yeah, if he loved the master, but his actions demonstrate he didn't. So his excuse is, in essence, master, how does he say it? You are an exacting man. You take up what you did not lay down. You reap what you did not sow. What is that fancy way of saying? I thought, master, if I invested this and I get a whole bunch of return, then hi. Someone control her child. You notice how she just, when she knows she's doing something she shouldn't, she just covers her eyes and just keeps doing it. You
Yeah,
can't see
you
me.
can't
I can't
see
see you. Here he is in effect saying, Master, you gave this to me, but I was afraid if I invested it for you and made all this return for you, I was afraid that you would just walk in, take everything that I returned, all that I had worked for, you would take it for yourself, and then just kind of walk off, and I would be left standing there.
Oh, that's what he meant?
Yeah, I mean, what's he getting at? You are an exacting man. You take up what you did not lay down. You reap what you did not sow.
But he
So
did
you-
so, and it was his money.
Yeah.
No, the slave is the one who's
Yeah,
sowing it.
the slave would be the one investing it and providing the return, which he's then saying basically, I was afraid you would take all my return.
He didn't
And then
want to do
my-
the work and have the boss get the money.
Yeah, is it fair that I invest all my time and effort and then you take it all?
Yeah.
And here he is.
But it was all his to begin with. That's what I'm
But
thinking,
the
like.
work, but the
Correct.
work that he did was his.
Yeah, like why should I use my mental power and my effort? Yeah, it's your money and everything.
Because
Okay,
you're
great.
slave. That's why.
Right. Okay.
When you're servant of somebody, you're tapped.
Correct. If you love the master, that's what you'll do. You'll say, I'm going to do everything possible to get him the greatest return possible. If you don't love the master, whatever you receive from him, be faithful. Like, have you ever known an employee like this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just in it for, the paycheck. All I care about is my own. If the master wants me to take this project and advance it and get a lot so that he can retire comfortably, what do I look like? His patsy? I don't think so. And that's how he is responding here. Now, we're going to take a look when we make application. Is this something that professing Christians could potentially do very easily? And I would argue the answer is yes, especially with pretending Christians. Okay, as we read through this, next question, how does this parable engage the hearer? How does this kind of hook you in and just get you wondering, especially if you pretend you have never heard this before and you're reading this, like, what kind of questions does this? Okay, what kind of believer am I?
That's when you get the understanding of the parable.
Okay.
For me, the first time I read this, I thought, wow, that's a harsh master. I mean, everything in here is saying
Uh-huh.
that he's a harsh master. And And then he takes away, and at the very end, he kills all the people that in
Mhm.
front of people that don't, don't subscribe to his plan.
Yeah, is that kind of a reversal of sorts, where the master goes away, okay, they were unfaithful, and his response is he slaughters everybody.
Yeah,
You go, whoa, that's a lot more severe than I was potentially expecting.
right.
But on the other hand, he rewarded the servants very generously
Yeah.
who were faithful. So on
Okay.
one hand, he's a great rewarder. On the other hand, he's a harsh taskmaster. He's a harsh
Exactly.
judge.
Yeah.
But there's not well, doesn't seem like it's all fair.
How so?
That was my first one. Well, because both of those servants earned something, the first two earned something back for him. And who knows that wasn't, I mean, I'm talking about first reading. Who
Mhm.
knows that wasn't what they were capable of doing? Do you know what
Okay.
I'm saying? And then the one is rewarded so very richly,
Mhm.
and the other one not really that much. Do you know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
so it does, there's a little bit of is that really fair in the distribution of reward?
So we're both in the same place, a little differently, but what we're doing as readers is judging. We ourselves are judging,
Mhm.
whether it's fair or not,
By
or,
our standards.
Yeah, our
by
standards of fairness.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we look at the nobleman and we say, well, according to my standards, like what would I give to someone who said, I got 10 talents back? I might say, hey, good job. You get to keep, I don't know, a third of it, half of it.
Which is not obligatory at all to the
Correct.
slave.
So that would be me being generous. Hey, slave, you did a great job. You get to keep half of this. So you made 10 talents. I'll let you keep 5. And
That
I'll
is
just take the other
generous.
5. That's generous, right? And yet you come to what the nobleman says, and he says you don't get 5 talents back. You don't get a year and a half bonus. You get 10 whole cities that you are going to reign over as their ruler.
Because he can trust him. He knows he'll do a good job.
Right, because he's proved a pattern of faithfulness. And even with the one who gets 5 talents back, he has proved at least some level of faithfulness. And so even with that partial faithfulness, he still receives wildly disproportionate, albeit significantly less reward from noblemen.
And that's what he means over there in verse 26.
Mhm.
Everyone who has more will be given. So the he's talking about the one who
Yeah,
he's going to get more because he has more money.
because what has he demonstrated as a result of getting back these 10 talents? That he is singularly focused on serving the master with the time and the talents that he has until the master returns.
And they must not have expected anything, right? I mean, the one that didn't invest
Probably not expecting what they get, for
he
sure.
wasn't expecting to get anything. Otherwise, he would have worked. If he knew that there was a reward, maybe he would have worked harder
Mhm.
and invested the money, right?
Good.
Scott,
Scotty,
we
did you
bring a
have
lot of our sensitivities to this. Verse 25 is the sensitivity of Jesus's audience.
Mhm.
Like this is what struck them as odd. He took from another to give to the one who had 10.
Yeah,
That's what they tripped over.
and
not
that's
what we trip over.
In your Bible, does it have 25 in red or black?
This is in red.
Red and wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jesus is highlighting here's something that they're struggling with. And yet, even this helps us understand something about the nobleman's priorities. So he takes this one talent away from the unfaithful servant, and then he looks and he says, I am going to give this to the one who has demonstrated himself to be singularly focused on my kingdom and my interests. And he bypasses the one who did okay, but didn't fully invest himself in the master's work. Scott.
You
So
said it
back up that
perfectly.
parallel passage in Matthew,
Uh-huh.
the money was doled out based on the master's expectation of the ability of his slaves to start with.
Yeah, and that's one of the significant differentiation points between Matthew 25 and what we have here. Here, everybody is allotted, we'll say something, the same thing. Tip my hand a little bit. Everybody has a life that they choose to invest somehow. Matthew 25, we have individual talents. You have some people who are extremely gifted, and they are 5-talent individuals. Here's in conjunction with your abilities. I'm giving you 5 talents. Let's see how you do. You are just a 2-talent, which is okay. But I'm going to give you 2 talents because that's your ability. You're a 1-talent individual. I'm going to give you 1 talent, and we're going to see how this goes. And then when they come back, the dividing line, again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. The dividing line is not, hey, you 5-talent individual got another 5 talents. You were 2 talents. You only got 2 talents back. Both of them took their individual talents and they made 100% return. And the master was pleased. Now, could we draw parallels there? And we will. And we'll get to this. But just, again, to tip my hand a little bit, if you have the one individual who we would look at and say, that is a 5-talent individual. He is gifted, he is personable, he is smart, he has the ministry, he has he has the books and the resources, and everybody listens to him. Boy, that guy is really, really, really going to rake in the dough when he dies. And then maybe there's another pastor who works in a small church who no one has ever heard of, but he is day after day after day after day faithful with what he has. Question, in the final evaluation, who gets the greater reward? Well, it depends. This guy, yeah, he accomplished all these things. Why did he accomplish them? Because God let him. Why did he have all these talents? Because God gave them to him. And this pastor over here, maybe he just had 2 talents. But he took those 2 talents and he worked those 2 talents. And he brought in another 2 talents. Maybe this guy over here, maybe he had 5 talents, but maybe he just coasted. And so he only got 3 talents back. But those 3 talents still look like more than this guy's 2 talents. And so on a human perspective, we say, well, clearly this guy's it, and this guy's, okay, good job. Happy for you. But God looks at it and says, I invested you with 5, you only gave me 3. I invested 2, and you brought back another 2. You got 100% return, you got an 80% return, 60% return. You did far better. And so in a Luke 19 sense, this guy was a 10-talent individual, whereas this guy over here was only a 5-talent individual. And so in the final evaluation, this man who is faithful that no one ever heard of then receives a much greater reward because he was more faithful with what he got.
Yeah, can you talk on, my question, of course, is when we speak of rewards in heaven, you make any comment about that? What exactly is that?
I would love to. I got a paper coming out, and you're welcome to read it. It's going to be over 600 pages.
Are you saying there's no short answer?
Yeah, like what's the paragraph version?
The Randy Alcorn says,
Coming from you, that's funny.
Well, considering 600 pages have never come from.
Nor has a paragraph.
Save it on earth and keep it, but you can send it on ahead.
So the question with that is, are we talking about material possessions per se as the reward, or is there something else? Because if it's, I'm serving God so that I get material possessions in eternity, that means I'm using God for an end.
Yeah.
I would think the same thing.
However,
I'm here for that.
to take that and flip it on its head, though, sometimes you will hear people say, and I understand the sentiment, I don't care if I get any rewards at all. I'm just happy to serve the Lord and do what is right. On one hand, I get that. On another hand, what does it mean if you get no rewards in eternity? It means your life was not pleasing to God. And so when people say, I would just love to be in the corner and get no rewards, well, that means your life was an absolute failure for Jesus Christ. And that means
Or looked at it that way.
when you stand in the presence of God, your desire is going to be to glorify and display Him. It's similar to, maybe there's a parallel to, if you hear a symphony orchestra that is playing an incredibly moving piece, if you're thinking about that, there's an aspect, you ever get this feeling, it's like, I don't, there's a part of me that just doesn't want to be sitting here. I want to be participating in the music. Or maybe if you're watching a game and you watch at 5, 4, 3, 2, and then suddenly there's a turnaround and the team that was down runs 98 yards for a touchdown, there's victory, and you're just going over the moon, cheering, screaming, going, yes, yes, yes. Glory demands participation. And when you stand before God, you will not be content to just stand there going, I'm just going to quietly stand here waiting for the next choral number. You are going to want to participate because Jesus Christ, as the joy of heaven, is the one that you are going to want to invest your life and your eternity into displaying. The more you can display Him, the happier you are going to be. The less you display Him, in one sense, the less enjoyment you get.
Janine, if when you enter heaven, Jesus says to you, your 10 cities will be these 10 choirs that I want you to fill out with music that glorifies the Lord, you would be all over it. So it depends on what the city is.
So as we come back then to this, the decision point is, into what category does the hearer fall? Which one are you?
I'm maybe missing something, and maybe this is, but I still have questions about that third slave.
Okay.
Because at the end, it says, the enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, slay them. That's the 7, clearly.
Okay.
Or the citizens.
Right. But
Assuming we're equating the 7 with the citizens, which for purposes here, we'll go ahead.
but the third slave,
Yeah, what happens to him?
because he wasn't actively, maybe in his spirit he was, but he wasn't
Mhm.
actively an enemy. Do you know what
Okay.
I mean? He wasn't professing to be an enemy.
But he was a pretender, right?
He was a pretender. There's indications in here when the master calls him a worthless slave. There's 0 return. And if we compare with Matthew 25, we could keep a finger there and just flip back. When we come to Matthew 25, starting with verse 24, and the one who also had received the 1 talent came up and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid and went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, what you have is yours. But the master answered and said, you wicked, lazy slave, you knew that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore, take away the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. So we look at that and we can see parallels there with just very minor verbiage differences. But when we come to verse 29, for to everyone who has, more shall be given. He will have an abundance. The one who does not have, even what he does shall be taken away. Verse 30. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness, into that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So that is the pretender who has pretended to be a believer. The parallel with Luke 19 indicates the exact same judgment is placed upon him. And so he demonstrates through the fact that he has provided no return for the master that he is an unfaithful servant. So if we kind of bring this in from the back end, if there is no reward, that means you have brought no return for the master, which means you did not love the master, which means you are a pretender.
Or like it says in the Bible, other places, if you're a good tree, you're gonna bear fruit.
Exactly. May not be a lot of fruit, but there will be some good fruit. And that's why Paul can say every man's praise will come to him from God for the believer. Every believer has some return that he has provided. If he doesn't provide any return, there's no reward because he is not a believer. He's a pretender. So what is the main point and the secondary points? The main point is Jesus is going to leave his disciples with the ability to labor for him, which translates into significant reward. And there's a number of secondary points that we could make that we have been making as we go along in terms of what is the recompense, how does it relate to faithfulness, etc. How does this passage relate biblical themes, or develop related themes? What are the rewards? Well, this gives us some of the indication that the reward is the ability to reign on behalf of Jesus in his kingdom, the kingdom that he has assumed by rights, based on his work and the salvation that he has brought. This is related to our faithfulness with our possessions for him right now. So similar to what we looked at last week, the possessions that God gives, which includes not just our physical possessions, but our time and our talents. How then are we investing those for the master so that we can give account when we come back?
You just have to remember, there were stewards. What do we have that we've not received? It's
Exactly.
from us, it's from him. To us, we joyfully give it back to him
Yeah.
because we love him.
But Tim, like verse 13, to go to Linda's question, the command is to engage in business.
Mhm.
And he disobeyed the command.
That's right. And so we look at everything that God gives, and we look at Romans 11:36. For of him and through him and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. What is that saying? Every single thing you have, if you're looking at it and saying mine, you're misunderstanding it.
But it's easy to parse out in one sense. What are we here to do in the intermediate with the resources we've been given? Judgment of the third is for disobedience. We're talking about the two in degrees of faithfulness.
Yeah.
But in the third, you're not talking about faithfulness. You're talking about disobedience.
Which is
so punishment
unfaithfulness
for disobedience is the easier category, where I think, Linda, I may be wrong, but your concept is, okay, this isn't exactly disobedience in the way that the enemies were disobedient, but it was disobedience.
Yeah, it was a veiled disobedience. And that's where, if we're thinking about it in terms of modern conception, you have the unbeliever who sits in the pew with well-coiffed hair and his Bible, but doesn't provide any return. And we have the open agnostic who hates God and spends his time railing online about how much he hates God. And we look and we say, well, that guy is much, much worse. And yet both of them are disobedient. And so the one who sits there, who pretends, first of all, at a public judgment, he is going to be shown, you brought no return to me. But categorically, he is no different than the agnostic, and he is going to get judgment in accordance with his disobedience.
And maybe even worse if he's causing others to stumble by his fabrication.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be one of the most sobering aspects of judgment is when you have people who pretended to be Christians and pastors and leaders, and their legacy of ministry was leading people astray. When we look at, let's take a look at the last two questions here. How does this passage contribute and relate to systematic theology? I'll just make some highlights here for time's sake. For God, there's a period of time between Jesus' humiliation and the coming kingdom of God. And so we are not then surprised in one sense when Jesus dies, buried, resurrected, but he does not yet inaugurate the physical kingdom on earth. That is coming. Jesus, there are rewards in conjunction with faithfulness and disobedience to him with what he gave us. And we notice that this is not a soft judgment. This is not kind of the Santa Claus judgment of, well, you didn't do a great job, but maybe I could have been a little bit clearer. Hey, you know what? Bygones, bygones. Come on, it's going to be like Jesus does not do that. You are evaluated based on what you did with the talent you were given. And only the most faithful is told, well done. The faithless are condemned. We could look at the doctrine of man. What does this tell us? Man is designed, created to use everything that he has and is for the sake of the master. And what's interesting, if you look at verse 17, Master says to him, well done, good slave, because you have been faithful in a very little thing. You are to be an authority over 10 cities. What is that very little thing that he's talking about? If we take the parable and extrapolate it out into real life, what is the very little thing he's talking about?
A little bit of money.
Money.
Well, let's go a little bit further. How about, it's going to include that.
How about
It's gonna-
evangelism?
What's the talent that he gives every single one of us? Even the unbelievers. Life.
Oh.
Life with all the components that you can use to invest for the master, or you can use to invest for yourself. And he takes life, as it were, and says, that's a very little thing compared to what you will be getting. So what this tells us then is that compared to what eternal life brings, this present life is comparatively a very light, very small thing. The doctrine of sin. What does sin do? Sin leads to, we could draw out three implications from this. Sin leads to partial faithfulness. Sin leads to excuses for unfaithfulness in the case of the third servant. And sin leads to open hatred. And then clearly eschatology, there's a number of implications we could make. There is a reward coming. It is not just that everybody dies and goes to heaven.
And then there's judgment.
There is judgment. There is a judgment day. There is a day coming in which you and I will be publicly evaluated. And then we will be rewarded based on how faithful we have been. The reward is going to be wildly, wildly disproportionate to our faithfulness, whereas the unfaithful are going to lose everything, and then even what they did accomplish, quote unquote, is going to be then given to those who were faithful. So, transition to the last question then. What are personal applications from this parable today? What are some as we look at our own lives, what does this then teach us about how we should think about our own lives?
Stop
Judy.
wasting time.
Stop wasting time. Yeah, if you want, I think the most sobering read I have ever done on it, I came across Jonathan Edwards. He has a relatively short, for Jonathan Edwards, short essay called The Preciousness of Time. And my encouragement would be for every single one of you to go back and read that. It's not terribly long, but I read it and I felt like I was being filleted as he went through and talked about how time is far, far more significant than money, than possessions, because money, you could lose everything. You could lose your house. And conceivably, you could get it all back. But your time, once it's gone, it is gone for eternity. You never get it back, ever. No matter how sorry you are over the time that you've wasted, you don't get it back. And he just goes through and he walks through, and this is how people waste time. This is how they waste it for active sin. This is how they waste it for just laziness. This is how they waste it. And then he goes through and talks about, so then what should you do with your time? So I would commit that to you as a very helpful essay on what we have been working through. How does this change or impact how we think about our lives here in the eternal reward to come?
Just reminds us that we should be careful about what kingdom we're building. Either we're building our own kingdom or we're building up God's kingdom.
Yeah.
And that the rewards are important. I used to think it wasn't a big deal. Like, you know, as long as I'm in heaven, I'll be okay. I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But that isn't, now when you said that about, like, if you don't get any rewards, your life wasn't pleasing to him, that kind of makes me think more about the rewards.
Yeah. Now, here's the other piece that you can put in as you're kind of putting that through your mind. The reward, the essence of the reward, is the enjoyment of God, which is linked to your love for God.
Better said, maybe what is it that you're in it for?
Right.
Are you in it just to go to heaven, or are you in it to glorify your God?
Because if you're in it just as a fire escape plan, there's real concerns that you may actually be the third servant. If you are captivated by, my desire is to be like Jesus, and I want to get as close to him as possible, and I want to reflect him as much as possible, you become more like Christ in life, which then translates into the reward. You are much greater able to display him in eternity, because that is what you have wanted and that's what you have loved. If your whole life is all about me, all about me, all about me, all about me, maybe a little bit about God, all about me, and then you die because you have not desired Christ to near the same degree, you do not get near the same degree of Christ in eternity. Again, I know we've mentioned this before, but this, again, is something that the entire church until 250 years ago understood and frequently taught on and wrote on. So your reward is related to your love for Christ, because your love for Christ is what drives you to your reward, which is Christ. And then flowing from that is, I get to reign, but not for myself. I get to reign because in reigning, I get to display Christ through my reign. You get the praise of God, but it's not that, okay, now I get to see how wonderful I am. It's that now my praise is coming from God, not just in the moment of judgment, but throughout eternity.
You get the joy of having pleased the master.
Right.
You know, like when you please somebody and their face lights up and they're so appreciative and they,
think about it in marriage terms. If someone said, I am going to love my wife, I'm going to give her flowers, I'm going to take her out to eat, but I don't care if there's any return from her. I don't care how she responds. I'm just doing this because it is right. Come on, honey. I don't care if I get, like you'd say, there's something horrifically wrong with that relationship, because love involves, I desire that person. I want to be close to them, understand them, be like them. And that's why marriage is one of the best pictures of what a relationship with Christ is. If you see him and desire him, you want more of him, which is your reward. And so this all ties together. So rewards are incredibly important because they demonstrate how much you love Christ. And in that regard, we are then responsible to use our lives, our time, talents, treasure for the master. Partial faithfulness does not result in the same degree of reward. There's not the same amount of praise in Luke 19. There's not the same amount of authority given. And so partial faithfulness doesn't receive the same reward, which helps us understand, like, why is every single day a day when we should wake up and say, Lord, I want to please you and I want to serve you however I can. Help me to understand how to do that, because that's what a 10-talent servant does. On the other hand, the pretenders, the ones who said, yeah, I'm a good slave. I love Jesus, but are pretenders, they will lose everything. So this is the person that sits in the pew. They say, I'm a Christian. You know, maybe even in a ministry context, maybe they're a pastor and they have everything going for them and they're well recognized and they've got their books and everything like that. But at the end of the day, they're doing all of that because not because I want to please the Lord, but because this brings me validation. That person is providing no return on the mina that they've been given. And so they may have the huge multi-ministry, multi-site campus and everything, but at the end of the day, they're not doing it for the Lord, because in effect, what their concern is, well, if I do it for the Lord, if I preach sound doctrine, if I take unpopular stands, then I'm going to lose what's really important to me. Having everybody here, multi-site campus, book deals, conference tours, things like that, I'm going to lose all of that. Now, that's the pastoral side. Can people in the church do that? Yes. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to love the Lord, but if I do that, then, you know, what about how it's going to impact, you know, these relationships or my finances or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, yeah, I can give some stuff to the Lord, but let's be honest, this stuff is all mine. And God wouldn't want me to, you know, not be happy, right?
That's the problem. What makes you happy? You gotta ask yourself that too.
Mm-hmm. If it's things instead of Jesus, there's a problem. And so pretenders lose everything because they use their talent for themselves and not investing for Christ, which is the reason they exist. And then we talked about Matthew 25, and we won't go back there, but Matthew 25, similar, not identical. There, the reward is based on the percentage return of talents assigned. Both of them got 100% increase. Both of them were told, well done. You will receive a great reward. So you are rewarded based on your faithfulness with the talents given, not the numerical results achieved. The numerical results are the function of God and how he decides to use you. But that is not what you are rewarded based off of.
So if you've wasted a lot of time up till now, it's not too late to earn a reward, right?
Correct. And that's why you don't know how much time you have left. So you just say, okay, let's say, because we have all wasted time. But you say, okay, I've wasted however many years of my life, but for whatever time I have left, I want to be absolutely faithful to the Lord to the best of my ability. Then be faithful to the Lord to the best of your ability and let him work out the reward.
This
Judy.
is all very convicting.
Well, good.
Good, yeah.
Good.
Good. If you're not convicted,
He means
it's a problem.
As it should be. It is convicting, and if it's convicting to you, that's good, because it's been convicting to me first as going through that. Shelley.
At the very beginning of the class, you mentioned that there was some placement of this story in the whole chapter.
The whole section.
This whole section had a meaning.
Jesus moving towards Jerusalem. This is the capstone. Okay, as I step into Jerusalem, here's something for you to remember. You need to be faithful servants, because I'm going to die. I'm going to leave. And so invest your life, invest everything you got, every breath for the master, because I will come back.
Because what's going to happen right now is he's going into Jerusalem.
And he's going to be crucified.
And then he's crucified.
mhm.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the placement of the story is
It's
really,
intentional.
really neat. That's really neat.
Yeah, it's
Never saw it before.
very, very well put together. Let's go ahead and pray and we'll let you guys go here.